Coming up on Tech News Today, why smartphones are beating dumb phones, Microsoft's Android Switch app, and details on the next Xbox. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, April 26th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, blog, portfolio, or online store. Check out their new commerce solution so you can start selling stuff immediately. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT4. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
I'm Alex Kempel.
And Sarah Lane off on vacation today. Jason Howell still out on paternity leave, but that will not stop us from bringing you all of the great tech news, including the top 10 stories of the day in the news feeds. Market researcher IDC says its numbers show more smartphones than non-smartphones shipped in the world last quarter for the first time ever. Out of 418.6 million mobile phones shipped, 216.2 million were smartphones. That makes up 51.6% of the total. Samsung won both counts with 32.7% of the smartphone market and 27.5% of the total market. Apple is the number 2 smartphone maker worldwide, and Nokia still clings to the number 2 spot for total phone shipper.
AT&T is launching its digital life home security and home monitoring system in 15 markets today. $30 a month with a $150 installation fee gets you a pretty basic security system. However, if you want some really cool stuff, there are options that let you get some home automation going, like controlling your thermostat, lights, and locks using a mobile app. That's available in the Smart Security package, which runs $40 a month with installation starting at $250. The first 15 markets include L.A., Miami, San Francisco, parts of New York, and, of course, Austin, because Austin gets everything.
Apparently. Amazon beat analyst expectations by not dropping profitability as much as they feared. Amazon did report a 37% decrease in profits year over year to $82 million on 18 cents a share. Analysts expected 9 cents a share, so that was better. Revenue, on the other hand, was the opposite. It rose 22% from $13.18 billion to $16.07 billion year over year, but analysts hoped it would be $16.16 billion. So close. Amazon has been good about communicating why its profits will be squeezed as it invests in speedier shipping, bigger data centers, and more consumer devices.
A while back, Motorola told a court that it wanted Microsoft to pay it royalties of $4 billion for the use of standard essential patents. Microsoft said, hey, that's crazy. And the U.S. District Court Judge James Robart agrees with Microsoft and says Microsoft must pay Motorola $1.8 million per year in royalties for the use of video and wireless patents. Microsoft currently makes use of Motorola technology in Windows and the Xbox.
BetaWorks, the investment group that bought Dig last year, has acquired Instapaper. CEO John Borthwick said the acquisition shows BetaWorks is not just an incubator anymore. It also means BetaWorks now makes money. Instapaper's Marco Arment wanted to find a home that would fully staff Instapaper, while Marco moves on to try other apps and creative projects. Arment will, though, stay on to continue to advise Instapaper indefinitely.
You know who thinks Google Glass is a little weird? Google chairman Eric Schmidt. Now, speaking at Harvard, Schmidt said that talking to Glass via voice recognition is the weirdest thing and said there are obviously places where Google Glass are inappropriate. All right, we all kind of knew that. But more interestingly, Schmidt said that apps offered to Glass users will require Google approval, unlike Google's approach with other Android devices.
Looks like CISPA is dead. U.S. Senator Jay Rockefeller, chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, believes the Senate will not take up the cybersecurity bill, according to comments an aide made to ZDNet. Senators are drafting separate bills that allow cybersecurity information sharing while better protecting privacy rights.
Facebook just picked up Parse, a company that would give Facebook the ability to sell app development tools. Parse provided back-end infrastructure like push notifications and data storage that made it easier for developers on the major mobile and desktop operating systems to make apps. Parse also had some big-name clients, including the Cadillac of networking, Cisco, the Cadillac of TV Food Networks, the Food Network, and the Cadillac of cars, Cadillac.
Are they the Cadillac of cars now? Oh, that's interesting.
Kind of.
The fan people are all gaga over Apple's new commercial, which emphasizes the iPhone's capabilities as a camera. The ad shows happy people doing happy things and taking happy pictures while soft, happy piano music plays. The only voiceover comes at the end and states every day more photos are taken with the iPhone than any other camera, because the iPhone is just a camera, apparently, or something.
T-Mobile, the uncarrier, is making Washington State's Attorney General unhappy. AG Bob Ferguson says T-Mobile is using deceptive advertising because it does not mention charges that consumers would have to pay if they left T-Mobile early. In particular, Ferguson is talking about T-Mobile's new plans where you pay a monthly fee to pay the cost of the phone. Leaving early means you'd have to pay the full price of the phone right away. Ferguson categorized the fee as a balloon payment and said that T-Mobile hasn't adequately disclosed this information in its ads.
It's about time balloons got paid, you know? That's what copyright's all about.
That's full of hot air, I think.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website for your business, maybe, or your consulting. If you're just doing a blog, you want it to look good, maybe a portfolio, you're a photographer, and now an online store. Squarespace introduces a new commerce solution that allows you to instantly create a store and start selling products right away. Squarespace Commerce provides a powerful and flexible e-commerce solution integrated to work with every Squarespace template, allowing sales for both physical and digital goods. You can sell music CDs or music MP3s, hardcover books, ebooks. Fast merchant account setup makes it possible. You can accept payments right away by credit or debit card. One interface for order management. You can track your orders. You can send out email updates to your customers. You can print shipping labels, add coupons, all from Squarespace. Squarespace Commerce is included with the business plan subscription. That's only $24 a month when you sign up for a year. It's $30 a month for the monthly plan if you just want to go month to month. And you still get all the great stuff from Squarespace, the exceptionally well-designed, award-winning design team, essentially at your beck and call, designing for you, for your blog. They're user experience experts. Each template also has hundreds of customization options available to change grid layout, colors, over 300 fonts. You get that great social media integration, and it's fast, easy, and reliable. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform integrating all your website needs. You need domains, got you covered. Design, there you go. Development, commerce, hosting, 24/7 customer support, it's all there. For a free trial, go to squarespace.com, sign up for a free account. No credit card needed. Just try it out, start building your website. And if you decide to purchase it, though, which we think you might want to, use this offer code, TNT4, and you'll get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, whether it's the monthly or the annual plan. And don't forget that annual plan comes with a free domain registration. That's squarespace.com. Use the offer code TNT4. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank them for their continuing support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to discuss the news of the day, very happy to have Brian Dunning, science writer for Skeptoid.com, back on the show. Welcome back, Brian.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here. Hello.
Good to have you along. Let's start off talking about that smartphone story from IDC. We've got more smartphones now than dumb phones or feature phones. Another thing that we didn't mention in the news views, LG grew the fastest of the bottom three. We talked about Apple and Samsung. LG, 4.8%, so still not that huge of a share, but popping back in front of Huawei and ZTE, who had really been kind of charging up from the bottom. Also, Nokia holding on to the overall, but they still fell from 20.6% to 14.8%. And in overall phones, LG nudged ahead of ZTE to number 4. What do we think LG's doing, Ayaz, that would get them to pop up in front like that?
Well, compared to the other guys, LG, ZTE is behind there. ZTE is almost a no-name in the States. But LG is really condensing its line. They're trying to do some bold designs. I've tried out some of their phones. The hardware's pretty good. They're kind of heavy-handed when it comes to scanning on their devices, so I think a lot of people don't even think about Android under there. But then again, LG, I believe, does make the Nexus 4, so maybe that's bolstering their profile, because that is a very popular device, very low cost, and it's surprisingly powerful.
Yeah, I think that's probably the big reason LG's popping in front is the Nexus 4. Brian, you probably like the rest of us, you're not surprised to see smartphones finally jumping ahead. But we're starting to see the smartphone market sort of develop into two areas. There's the high-end smartphones, and then there's the cheaper ones. Do you think that there will be just getting rid of feature phones eventually? They'll be just gone?
I don't see it happening soon, and part of the reason has to do with, as you may or may not know, I've expanded my podcast into a Chinese language version. And so that's giving me some more exposure.
No, I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, skeptoid.com.cn. And we've got Chinese language versions of many of the shows. But that's given me some exposure to how people are using phones in China, especially. And, you know, to type Chinese on a smartphone, you know, if you've seen someone do it, you go through little submenus to select from all the characters. And you need to do the same thing with a feature phone that usually has the hard buttons. The thing is that what I've learned is in China, a lot of students will like to text with the phone in their pocket so they can't be observed to be doing it. And you can't type with a smartphone in your pocket, but you can with the buttons because your thumb can feel where the buttons are. So given the Asian market, I'm not surprised to see the feature phones hanging on. Although in the US, I am surprised. I'm surprised to see that they still exist at all.
Yeah, it's merely a bargain feature. That's really interesting about the physical keyboard, because you hear a lot of people talking about folks in business or IT guys really wanting to have that physical keyboard. Maybe BlackBerry could make a mint if they just started marketing their phones to secret Chinese texters.
It seems to be what the market wants over there.
Well, HTC does have a bunch of keyboards on some of their Android phones. I think the Cha-Cha, whatever their Facebook phone was, it basically was a QWERTY machine. BlackBerry could probably make a real killing on that because they have a really great keyboard. But then again, with all of these phones looking like black slabs anyway, it probably would be a good differentiator to say, look, we have a QWERTY machine as well. I'm sure Samsung probably has one. They make, millions of phones. It is interesting, as Brian's saying, in the U.S., why they even exist, because the carriers really want people to pay data fees and voice fees and these fees, and feature phones don't have those.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're seeing a decline. It's going to take a few years for it to really decline out of relevance to where it doesn't merit its own category. But this is one of those days, one of those points on the calendar that we'll we probably won't look back
fondly on it and say that was the day that
this is the day it happened. Let's talk about Twitter bringing a new feature, except it's not all that new.
Well, it's new for Twitter, I guess, officially. All Things D is reporting that Twitter is currently testing a new feature that lets you discover tweets from people within a certain distance of you. You'd get relevant data based on local activities, and this data would be coming from any Twitter user, not just people you follow. All Things D says that the local discovery tool is actually the product of a recent hack week by engineers at Twitter. And here's how it'll be implemented. There's two different versions that Twitter is testing and deciding on. There's either the one that allows you to have a separate Discover tab for local information, or the ability to insert local suggestions in your main Twitter feed. Brian, do you think Twitter should be getting in the local game? This seems like more the area of something like Foursquare.
No. I think that in some ways the internet is still in its infancy, and businesses are still trying to figure out how to use it. And the great thing about the internet is it lets you interact with people and places and things that are far away. When we're dealing with your local business, you don't need it. And what I keep seeing a lot of is businesses trying to run initiatives over the internet, like live tweeting of sports events of a high school, for example. If anyone cares about it, they're actually going to be there. They're going to walk down the street. Things like that, I really just don't see the local features as catching on.
Tom, you said this is something that's not new. In fact, you gave me a link this morning saying this has been done before. Do you think this go-around would be different?
Yeah, I saw this story this morning. I was like, wait a minute. Tweety did this on my phone back when I was barefaced and fat working at CNET. Like, it's been a long time we've been able to look at local tweets. It just wasn't. Twitter's acting like, oh, we had to have a hacker weekend. I wonder if somebody just didn't take the Tweety code and was like, here, I hacked in together local tweets. I think that localization is becoming a big fad. Twitter obviously is going to explore that to see if they can do something with it because they're trying to reach out to businesses. That makes sense to me. This idea of them agonizing over whether to put it in my main feed or whether to have it in the Discovery tab, I think I would like to help them with. Don't put it in my main feed, ever. I don't want it there.
Brian, do you agree with Tom? Do you want to actually have these things telling you, hey, by the way, here's a sponsored link from Twitter saying this thing is great. Oh, by the way, something nearby you has a special.
The only time I've ever found that useful is when I'm using Waze, the navigation app, and I drive past Carl's Jr. and it says hamburgers half off. That's really the only time I've ever found a local feature useful. So no, I agree. I would not want that stuff in my feed sitting here at my desk.
Yeah, I'm thinking about which ways they should go. I could see Twitter, they're going to go one way or the other. They don't seem to really give you a lot of customization options when it comes to their official apps. They're pretty much dumbed down. This is the way it is. You go to that Discover tab, or you can do maybe a search, but they don't really influence your main list. But then again, the way Twitter's working with music and the fact that when you follow artists, it goes into your main feed, I could see it being a potential revenue stream for Twitter to say, wait a second now, if local businesses are willing to pay, we'll put this there. It's not different than a sponsored tweet necessarily. It's just more localized, and it might be more effective. I think that local, I don't think Twitter first when I think local. I always think of that as global because that's a much larger conversation. I think Foursquare for me should be a little scared. If I was Foursquare, I'd be like, wait a second, that's our gig. We do local. Now Twitter's getting in it?
I don't know. I think Foursquare is probably better at it than Twitter is because that's all they've been doing for years now. And I use localization type stuff on Yelp and on Foursquare to find restaurants nearby or find businesses nearby. And that's something where I don't want people to pay to be found. I want to see everything that's available and see some unbiased recommendations. And I don't know if Twitter really needs to get into that end of things. So I feel like Foursquare is probably pretty safe there. Nearby tweets can be interesting, especially in big conferences maybe or something like that, but it seems a little faddish rather than something you could really build a business on.
Well, local search in general I found to be a little bit lacking. I know Bing has a local search. When I want to find events that are going on in like Petaluma, not exactly very simple to do, not exactly a huge tech-savvy town when it comes to the local vendors, at least as far as I've seen. Maybe something's different. But to find local things that are going on, I think Twitter's much more mainstream, so maybe there would be more information put out that way instead of on these really old, outdated websites for events.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Definitely.
You know how Google Mail...
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
You know how Google Gmail, how they have the little keywords to create customized mailboxes and kind of things? If there was some way to do something similar to that, which is Twitter does with hashtags right now, if I look for, I'm in Laguna Niguel, if I look for the Laguna Niguel hashtag, maybe I'll get a restaurant. But if I'm interested in something about Jeeps, I could use the Jeep hashtag. That's the way the things should be categorized by, more specific interest rather than it's just local, because just being local doesn't necessarily mean that I have any interest in it at all. So I think they need to find something more toward, hey, how about hashtags? I think that might work.
Hash brown tags, where I can find brunch. I'd be into that.
I think you got something.
Let's talk about Samsung earnings. Everybody got really excited about Apple earnings earlier this week, but Samsung had great earnings. And what was odd to me is barely a blip out there as far as coverage. The normal outlets covered it, but no excitement around this company that's profiting 7.15 trillion won. That's about $6.4 billion US, up from 5.05 trillion year over year. Sixth straight quarter of profit growth. The smartphone division is carrying the company right now. It rose 56%, and it apparently makes up 70% of the profits now. They warned that the low-end smartphone business, the cheaper smartphones, not the feature phones, but the cheaper smartphones, is going to face stiffer competition in the future, so they're concerned about that. But otherwise, they had great outlooks for the future. Samsung Galaxy S3 sales have been steady. They're launching the Samsung Galaxy S4 this weekend. Note 2 sales have been up. The Tab 2 series has increased. PC shipments have decreased, but that's not unusual. They're decreasing for everyone, and it's not as big of a business for Samsung. Also, TV earnings down. That's another industry that's been at least flat, if not sagging. We know Panasonic's getting out of the business, for instance. So the one thing they did say, I guess maybe they should have said more fun stuff in their earnings call, but they did say they're planning to push Android updates to customers faster than the competition. That's what they would like to be known for. Is Samsung in much better shape than Apple, and that's just not interesting? Brian, why do you think more people aren't excited about Samsung's earnings?
Because people don't care.
Yes, but why?
Samsung is a maker of products, and Apple is a lifestyle. And they're just apples and oranges. They're two different things.
Ha ha, oranges and apples. Got it.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So Samsung, they do make everything. It's not just the electronics division. They also they make washers and dryers. They're not very quiet or secretive. I think this might be one of the things that makes it different than Apple. Apple is very tight-lipped when it comes to anything that they do. Samsung's like, oh yeah, we're working on a watch, and yeah, we're gonna have like a Google Glass competitor, and yeah, we have a vacuum that has a camera on it. Yeah, we have all of these things, and we're totally fine with telling you about it. The last secret thing that Samsung did was the S3, and the S4 was kind of widely leaked as well. So I think it might just be that people aren't super excited about their earnings reports because Samsung is very public with what's coming out in the future.
Yeah, there aren't as many whispers. Although it's interesting to me that Amazon, we talked about the Amazon earnings earlier, were bad, but Amazon does such a good job of managing those expectations. Like, look, we're not going to be as profitable right now because we're investing in these things. Apple got beat up because they're probably doing the same thing, but they won't tell you other than we're investing in things. But that kind of secrecy does hurt them in the market. I guess the question is, if Samsung can have these great earnings and it really doesn't affect opinion, Apple can have good earnings and everyone thinks they're like falling into the toilet, and Amazon has bad earnings, but everybody's like, oh, they're fine. Does any of this stuff really make sense, or is it just a hype cycle and we should ignore it? Brian, what do you think?
I've always ignored it. I simply use Amazon a lot, so I'm happy with them. I couldn't care less about what their earning report says. You know, I have my iPhones. I'm happy with them. I couldn't care less about what Apple's earning report says. It's just not something that I don't think many people are interested in. And if you're an investor, great. But if you're Joe Blow end user, it's just not the kind of thing that's part of your worldview. I don't think.
There definitely is this idea of, okay, Apple, with investors, Apple's doing these groundbreaking things every now and then. It seems like people are very calm when it comes to Samsung. They're managed quite well. They don't really have gaffes up at the top, other than their huge patent dispute with Apple. Then there's Amazon, which we saw that customer service, was that study a long time ago saying that Amazon was like tops because people get like warm fuzzies when they think Amazon because they're getting gifts all the time. Our chat room dubbed them Santa Claus. That's why people are like, yeah, Amazon will be fine because we want them there tomorrow. We're going to keep going back because we love getting our Amazon boxes.
You know, they say the worst thing that can happen is people don't talk about you. Maybe badly managing investor expectations is good. It does get all the blogs buzzing about you, apparently. All right, let's move on to talk about Microsoft releasing an Android app. Now, that's not unusual. They have a few out there, but this one has a purpose.
Yeah, according to NeoWin, Microsoft's going to release a switch to Windows app for Android. And here's how it would work. This app would run on Android. It does an inventory of the apps you have on your phone, then finds Windows Phone equivalents, including substitutions if there isn't a one-to-one comparison. The app is being developed by Microsoft in conjunction with a third-party developer, and it uses SkyDrive to store that inventory. Then you go to your Windows Phone, which has the data from that Android app, and you can just pick and install the applications you want. It's being powered by app search engine Quixie, and a Quixie rep told NeoWin the app was planned for today, but is delayed until next week. And the story first popped up on Site World a couple of days ago, and they also added there's no iPhone version coming out. Brian, on this show a lot we talk about ecosystem lock-in. People are afraid to leave their phones because how am I going to find all my apps? How am I going to know what's going on? Do you think this kind of approach is intelligent for Microsoft?
It's hard for me to say because I really don't completely have my head around how it would work. Certainly, the ecosystem lock-in is a concern of mine. I can't see how I could ever possibly switch from my little Apple environment to anything else. So yeah, I don't really know how effectively this is going to address that.
Tom, what's your take on this? Because the thing is, when it comes to Windows Phone, it seems like they're suffering. People are saying they don't have enough applications out there. Is this going to let people go, oh, wait a minute, there are equivalents out there?
Yeah, I was like Brian when I first heard about this morning. I was like, I just don't get this. I don't get the appeal here. But when you dig into it, I guess there is a really appealing factor to it, which is it's going to look at your Android phone. And it would be nice if they had an iOS version, but they don't. But it looks at your Android phone and says, okay, here are all the apps you have. Here are all those apps that are available in Windows Phone. And here are the equivalent apps that if you move to Windows Phone, you'd be able to use these apps instead because they're supposedly just as good. We're going to save those to SkyDrive for you, that list. And if you switch to Windows Phone, you'll be able to download that list and we'll install all of those apps on Windows Phone and it'll be seamless. You'll have all of the apps that you've been used to, all the apps that you love right there on Windows Phone. When you start to look at it that way, it becomes a great proposition, right? The question is anybody going to do that?
No. Here's the thing with Microsoft. Kind of has. I'm swear I'm not trying to start a religious fight here, but Microsoft kind of has a history of bringing out illogical products. I'm reminded right away of the Zunes killer feature, which is that you can do social listening. Two people can get together with their Zunes, and if they're close by, they can access each other's songs. It never occurred to anyone at Microsoft that friends don't get together so they can then put headphones on and listen to different music instead of interacting with each other. The same thing with this. I didn't buy an iPhone so that I could find out what Windows apps are available. It is not the way to reach that audience.
I think the real thing could be if you have, let's say you're in the very tail end of a 2-year contract and you're like, what other phones are out there? You might start looking at devices that are outside of your normal ecosystem. But the first thing is you want to think, hey, maybe Microsoft does a huge ad campaign for Windows Phone, or Nokia does, or HTC does, one of these companies. And if it does pique your interest enough, you might look at it. I don't think it's going to be a game changer by any means, but I definitely think that this kind of thing it gives Microsoft the opportunity to say, listen, we can show you a one-to-one comparison. We are just as good as these guys. Because when it comes to hardware, some of the Samsung products that Samsung uses are effectively rebranded Galaxy phones. So the hardware's still very good. It's just running a different operating system. And at this point, it's really just about the apps anyway. So if the apps are the same, that's pretty much makes them all the same. All these phones are the same. I think the real issue with lock-in is media. When you have that DRM Google Play video, or if you have DRM'd Amazon video, or DRM'd iTunes media, it's harder to get you to move from system to system because that costs some serious money over time.
Yeah, I would look at this as a utility. If I have already decided to buy a Windows phone and I have an Android phone, Microsoft says, hey, install this Android app real quick before you switch phones and we'll make the transition easier, then this is a great thing. But if you're trying to interpret it as something that will persuade you to switch, I'm not sure if it works that way or not. I don't know. Maybe Microsoft doesn't care if it works that way. They just want to make the switch easier down the line.
They don't care if it works. They'll just put it out there.
Well, no, they only say it's only for people who've already decided to Windows. Maybe we're not trying to use it as a persuasive element, is what I'm saying. We have some details on the next Xbox. Now, they're not announcing this till May 21st, but Paul Thurrott knows things, host of Windows Weekly here on Tech or on This Week in Tech, and he was on Windows Weekly yesterday talking about this. He also has a post up on Windows IT Pro saying, here are the things I know, here are the things I think I know, and this is what we're going to find out. Coming November 2013, according to Paul, based on the Windows 8 core, so that might make it easier to take apps from Windows 8 and put them on Xbox, at least for the developers, if not for the consumers. Standalone version would be $499, or you could get a subsidized version for $299 if you agree to a 2-year Xbox Live subscription at $10 a month. There will be no media-only version, according to Paul. That was the codename Yuma version that was going to go into your spare room and just be an entertainment box that wouldn't play video games. That's been put on hold. There will be a Blu-ray drive in this thing. It also will need to be internet connected, but Paul says it's not going to be as bad as people think. And in fact, Polygon backs this up. Polygon says what they're hearing is that you'll need to be internet connected for some games, but that will be up to the publishers to decide. So you'll have to have an internet connection to make the Xbox work, but you'll still be able to play some games offline if the publisher of those games deems that. Paul was also saying there might be a cheaper Xbox 360 codename Stingray. So the Xbox 360 would continue to be sold in a new version. Also, this new Xbox would, according to Polygon, have a share button for uploading game footage, similar to what the PS4 is going to do. The ability to add achievements without downloadable content, so you could have achievements added as you play the game. Also, cross-platform achievements. And Paul says that the Kinect will be integrated. It won't be optional. You'll just get a Kinect built into this device. I'm curious how that is going to work. Ayaz, does this get you excited for the Xbox, hearing all this stuff?
It gets me more excited for the other Xbox, the Xbox 360 that's being refreshed. When I heard Paul talk about this on another podcast, I think it was called What the Tech, the Stingray was going to cost something like $100. And the concept behind that would be because the Xbox 360 uses a different architecture. The next Xbox uses a different architecture than the 360. Your old games are not going to necessarily work on that. I think that's going to be their nice killer little media box. But the 720, whatever they're calling the next version, this device, I think Microsoft's really intelligent with the 2-year Xbox Live subscription. When they came out with the Xbox that cost $99 with a contract, that price point looked very attractive. And that device has been the top game console for, 27 months in a row? I think a $499 price tag is quite scary when it comes to a device, but they can soften that blow with this contract price. Blu-ray is going to be better games, makes it more of a media box. I'm excited about, actually, both of these products.
Brian, are you enough of a gamer to get your blood going looking at the specs? Or
I get my blood going if there's something that is a real game changer. For example, like in the way that the Wii was, that brings a whole new. This just seems too evolutionary and not at all revolutionary to make me give it a second look.
I think looking at these specs, I agree with you. It's sort of like, okay, I get the Kinect built in. Yeah, Blu-ray player. That's about 3 years too late, but okay, that's fine. I'm not seeing anything here that really blows me away. But remember, this is just things Paul Thurrott is saying. I'm pretty sure about these. There may be lots of other stuff here that will be a game changer that'll blow us away, but we're just not hearing about them yet. I guess we'll have to wait till May 21st to see about those things. Let's finish up with AT&T rolling out some home security. Is that
that's
that
half
get
of
my
it.
blood going?
No, not the home security part. Now first showing off in February 2012, AT&T's finally launched its Digital Life, and yes, there's a home security component. So if you want to be secure, I shouldn't really say that's a negative. Having a security system is always good to have. But there's also a much cooler thing that I'm interested in called the Smart Security System. Brings some elements of home automation. It's got sensors for carbon monoxide, smoke detectors, but you can add energy management, a camera system for around $5 to $10 per month. The Smart Security System starts at $40 a month, and it'll cost $250 for equipment and installation. If you start adding in these components like a lock that you can control with a mobile app or your thermostat, then your installation fee goes up. I believe Engadget priced it at something like $650 when they were adding in components. You do have the ability to control this stuff via apps, iOS, Android, Windows Phone 8, and eventually BlackBerry. Pretty much home automation coming from AT&T. Brian, do you think AT&T is the right kind of company to be bringing this to the masses?
It makes me a little bit nervous, I'll be honest with you. My AT&T Uverse box runs a really old version of Windows CE. I can see getting locked out of my house. I can see all my windows suddenly turning blue. It's not a product I would spring for.
I mean, there's a lot of different products out there for home automation. They have individual apps, and you have these different disparate device makers. So all the apps don't necessarily work together. I think that AT&T, by putting it all together, might have a more cohesive experience. I kind of like you, Brian. I'm kind of curious if AT&T is the right company to bring this to everybody. Tom, what do you think?
Well, Verizon has a version of this already, and when I moved into the new place, I looked at all of their extra stuff, and it was really, I don't know, it was really underwhelming. What they provide is the sort of things you could go and buy on your own for cheaper, and not have to pay a service fee to operate. Things like drop cams and that sort of stuff. So I am not seeing anything here that persuades me that this is any better. I don't know that this is good. This is, again, kind of similar to what we were talking about with Microsoft. It's good for AT&T if they can convince people to do this, and maybe some people who just don't want to think at all about it will say, oh, I can just add it to my phone bill, done. But I don't know that this is the kind of, I don't think this is the company that I would want to do this kind of service for me.
It seems unusual for companies like AT&T. I believe Comcast has a security system as well. But I do think they do have that advantage, like I was saying, that cohesive thing. If you have all of these different apps, you want to make sure they're all updated at the same time. In theory, AT&T is supposed to be better at that. In theory, I have no idea how they're actually going to execute. Because this is in 15 markets, they're saying it's going to be available in up to 50 markets by the end of the year. So they have the ability to be nationwide and at a pretty big starting point because they're just a large company. Nest has this awesome thermostat, but relatively small. You got to install it yourself. There's all these other devices out there. But if there's one person who can come in and install it and AT&T is going to try it, having a connected home could be, it's kind of like the Epcot adventure way back in Florida, where it'd be.
Yeah, I don't agree. I think the only way that this can be done successfully is through some sort of open standards. Like, for example, if you're into sailing on a yacht, every single piece of equipment speaks the same language from every different manufacturer. Home automation needs to be the same way. I would not want everything in my house run by a single company. I'd want the option to use, different lights, different controllers, different remotes, and any company that steps in and says they want to be your one-stop provider for everything, that scares me away.
What could possibly go wrong? Your house crashes, right?
Yeah, Mark in the chat room says, late on your phone bill, they lock you out of your house.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with you, Brian. There are some standards out there. I don't really know the market well enough to know how successful they are, but there are definitely open standards out there. And you can buy a Nest in any market. You don't have to wait for availability from something. So you're totally right. There is an appeal to saying, okay, well, this is a company that's going to take care of it for me and its convenience. But there are other companies who could do that too. They're just not as well known. So AT&T certainly got a marketing advantage.
Well, like you were saying, Tom, there are standards out there. There's in lots of electronics at all, there are standards. But the problem is implementation and consumer education. If you try to explain DLNA to somebody, they're like, what are those words? What does letters mean? What does that actually do? Apple called it AirPlay, and people go, oh, I get it. I think if this can be marketed a certain way because of the power of AT&T, because they don't have to explain to the customer, yeah, we've got X10 running all together. You don't need to know what X10 is. You don't need to know that you need to have these different applications. We'll set up the application for you. We'll take care of everything on the back end. That I think will actually hopefully bring more home automation things out there in general. Maybe it'll be a little like approved for AT&T boxes for expansion.
Yeah, I'll stay away from those. All right, so let's move on to the randomizer. It's one of those sciencey randomizers today. Zhonglin Wang, a professor of material science and engineering at Georgia Tech, has created an array of transistors made of nanowires that could form the basis of a new class of device that are sensitive as your skin, according to research published in Science magazine. This has been a holy grail for some researchers to figure out how to mimic that sensitivity we have in our fingertips. Examples of uses would be the capturing of electronic signatures by recording the force an individual has while signing. So it's not just the pattern of your signature, but how you sign it. Wang says his group's pressure sensors arrays could equip robotics and prosthetics with a human-like sense of touch. So your prosthetic limbs could actually maybe deliver signals into the brain that relay touch information. Fascinating stuff. Of course, years down the road here at this point, but a big advance. Brian, maybe the Xbox didn't get you excited. This got to get you excited.
No, certainly. I think, though, that with science stories like this, people tend to, especially headline writers, tend to make leaps of logic to make it seem a little bit more sensational than it might actually be. For example, this stuff the most exciting thing you said was that prosthetic limbs. Hey, now I can feel just like I've got real hands. It's not the pressure sensor that's the bottleneck there. It's the interface to the brain. And this doesn't address that. So it would be wrong to say that this is a significant step forward toward becoming more lifelike prosthetics. But certainly it's a great thing, but I don't see immediately it bringing a tremendous boost to anything.
Well, maybe they could put this on side of TVs and things when people get angry and smack it. And they're like, okay, well, it responds to the mechanical force. When you press harder on a button, maybe the strike is better. That could probably be done by accelerometers, but this seems like it'd be a much cooler gimmick. It could be a gimmick for lots of things in the future is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it could be on the new Xbox. You can tell how hard you're pressing. No, I agree with you. I tried to choose my words very carefully when I'm talking about prosthetics because there is an interface that can send signals to the brain, but it can't replicate all of the signals that are sent naturally to the brain. And so this would just be another input for that. And how or when we're able to make good use of that, you're absolutely right, Brian, is going to require a lot more research. I was a former headline writer. What can I say?
What was the little the Sony the Aibo? Remember the
dog?
little robotic dog thing?
So you could pet the dog and it would know.
It did. It had a little bit of touch sensitivity to it. All right. Well, Sarah's not here, but Ayaz has valiantly agreed just now when I volunteered him to fill in by reading the calendar.
I'm doing what now? Okay, I'm going to try to read the calendar. Samsung Galaxy S4 launches tomorrow. Due to demand, Samsung says the initial supply is going to be limited. So if you want to get it in store, get an early start if you want an S4. TechCrunch's Disrupt starts tomorrow with its hackathon. I keep reading that as Hackintosh. Leap Motion's gesture recognition hardware. You know that cool thing that's kind of like the Kinect for your PC? Yeah, it's not going to ship until July 22nd. The company originally said that Leap would launch next month, but that's not happening.
There was a very long apologetic email sent to those of us who pre-ordered explaining at length why this isn't going to happen until July, and they're really sorry, but they want to make sure it's good. They don't want to ship something before it's ready. So, okay, I guess I'll wait.
It looked before they leaped.
Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
We got a message from Eric. He says, I have to disagree with Tom on the DRM issue. Just because something is open doesn't mean it's easy to circumvent or defeat. In fact, a lot of the time it's much harder to circumvent when something is completely open. For example, HTTPS, TLS, SSH v2, etc. Everyone knows how they work, but they won't see my conversations when I'm using them. I think for the sake of moving the technology forward in an open way, this should be part of the standard. Imagining if a new device has HTML5 compatible browser and you could take advantage of a DRM video out of the box by simply going to a website. Being open means being open to good things and the bad ones.
Eric's right. Being open doesn't mean you're less secure. And he makes a very good point about things like HTTPS, TLS, and all of those sorts of things. If you read Manu Porny's link that was in our show yesterday with his description of why he worked on a DRM product, and he explains, here are the problems with DRM and working them into a standard. He explains much better than I tried yesterday at why DRM doesn't work as an open standard. And this is the problem, is that the DRM people understand that. Nobody's saying that DRM should become part of the standard. The problem with DRM is that you're authenticating and authorizing access to information. All the things that Eric describes, TLS, SSH, they are all about encrypting information from one end to the other. But once I receive that information, I get to keep reading it. I don't have to keep reauthorizing. DRM is an entirely different thing, and it works on controlling information that you have access to. And because of that, there's an arms race. And that's why I said go read Manu's article, because Manu has a great description of how they had to keep trying to figure out how to cycle the DRM scheme so that it would change every time it got beaten, because it would get beaten all the time. And it just became this thing that is unworkable. And that sort of thing is just unworkable as a standard, which is why they came up with this idea of, we'll put the hooks in so that the modules will work the same way. But that's as far as the standard can take it. So Eric makes a good point. I just did a bad job of explaining it yesterday, I have a feeling. Let's talk about email from Jim in San Diego. Said, I just listened to episode 739 about the review of the Samsung Galaxy S4 being less than premium in feel due to the plastic that they use. I own the Galaxy S3, and I've come to realize the genius in the plastic design. All right. If you look at the most premium phone out there, it is rare to find one without a plastic protective case on it. Samsung has created a design that incorporates the plastic case into the phone without sacrificing the well-engineered thinness of the device. If you want to upgrade your plastic, all you need to do is do a quick eBay search, and you can find a huge variety of replacement back covers, ranging from leather to carbon fiber to brushed metal, everything in a variety of colors, and all for less than $10. Also, give me a removable plastic back cover to access an SD card slot any day over a premium solid metal body without an SD card slot. Does that allay your plasticky concerns at all, Ayaz?
No, not at all. I don't think that there's no possible way to have a well-crafted device that can have, I don't know, a removable door. I'm pretty sure my PCs and my laptops used to have the ability to remove a piece and then take the battery out. I don't know why we have to have this plastic back at all, other than to save money for Samsung. I understand what they're doing for profit margin and business reasons, but as a high-quality piece of hardware, you can have a high-quality build and you can disassemble it. I know it's crazy, but it's possible.
You can get a leather back, just $10.
I can keep switching them too. So I do like the idea of being able to switch things out as well. But I think
Captain America logo on there for you.
Have you been get out of my Amazon, would you?
All right, well, that is it for this show. Brian Dunning, thanks for joining us today. Let folks know about Skeptoid, what you're up to, and where they can find your podcast and all that good stuff.
Skeptoid.com. It's a weekly podcast. It's been one of the top 5 or 10 on iTunes in the sciences section for years and years and years and years and years. Every week is a different topic, some urban legends, some alternative medicine, some UFO story, aliens, ancient mysteries, all kinds of cool stories that you've probably heard about. And I've got a new take on it. I guarantee you that you haven't heard. Skeptoid.com.
That's right. You can also help us put together our lineup every day at technewstoday.reddit.com. That is our subreddit. So what you can do there is you can look at all of the things that other listeners have submitted saying, we think they should talk about this today, and then you can vote on them. Vote it up, vote it down, or submit your own links. That's technewstoday.reddit.com. Also, don't forget about our best of. Twit.tv/best of is the place to go if you want to submit a moment on any of the Twit shows that you say, hold this, put this in a vault, and put it together at the end of the year in the best of shows that you put together. Helps us put those together. So do that, twit.tv/best of. You can find us any time of day, night or day at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us TNT@twit.tv or give us a call. Leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT show. We'll be back on Monday with Nate Langston, editor of Wired UK, wired.co.uk on the show with us. See you then.